Hello everyone, my name is Nidhi Anand and today we will be studying chapter number 6 of Bhagavad Gita, which is titled Dhyan Yoga or the discipline of meditation. This chapter has 47 verses in all and it starts with the first two verses where Lord Krishna is addressing Arjun and telling him that yoga and sannyas are the same. Now yoga is the art of linking oneself with the Supreme. So here Lord Krishna is trying to state that yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme or the higher being and sannyas or renunciation, they are both same. In verses 3 to 4, two levels of Ashtanga Yoga or the eightfold yoga system have been explained. This is also known as the eightfold yoga system, and the beginning state of it is Aruruksha and the advanced stage is Arud. So the 8 stages in the Ashtanga Yoga are Yam, which is don'ts, which are regulations or prohibitions. The second is the Niyam, which is the do's, which are the rules or prescriptions that one is supposed to follow. The third in the Ashtanga Yoga is the Asan or the bodily exercises. The fourth is Pranayam or the breathing exercises. The fifth in the Ashtanga Yoga is Pratyahar, which is withdrawing the senses from sense objects. The sixth step is Dharan, which is fixing one's mind on the Lord's form. The seventh in the Ashtanga Yoga is Dhyan, which is intensified meditation on the Lord. And the last and the final stage of this is Samadhi, which is the completion of the eightfold yoga system, which is complete absorption or being in a state of trance. Now, a person who is in the beginning stage of the Ashtanga Yoga level is known Aruruksha in Sanskrit and is known as Arud in Sanskrit, the person who is advanced. Now, in verses 5 to 6, Lord Krishna is mentioning that mind is both a friend and enemy of a person. So, it is entirely up to us whether we make mind our friend or whether we make mind our enemy. By restraining the mind to a certain extent, by self-control, by practicing self-control, we can make mind our friend. And when we let mind have its own way and indulge in sense gratification, then mind becomes an enemy and a lot of agitation takes place in the mind. Then from verses 7 to 9, symptoms of a person in a yoga stage has been mentioned. So in this, I would like to mention verse 6.7, which says, Jitatmana prashantasya parmatma samatitha shitto na sukha dukdhesu tatha manapamanayoha. This means for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Tranquility here means calm. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, which means all the dualities are all the same. So from verses 7 to 9, symptoms of a person who is a yoga rude person has been stated, who is in the advanced stage of Ashtanga Yoga. Then from verses 10 to 32, the stages of Ashtanga Yoga practice have been mentioned, in which from verse 10 to 17, the practicing stage of Ashtanga Yoga, which is the basic practices, have been recommended, and what they have also explained what is the goal of Ashtanga Yoga, which is ultimately God realization. From verse 18 to 23, perfectional stage of Ashtanga Yoga has been mentioned, and various aspects and realizations of perfection have also been explained in these verses. From verse 24 to 32, attaining perfection in Ashtanga Yoga or the eightfold yoga system has been elaborated, which means that a person can realize the super soul by advancing and by achieving perfection in the Ashtanga Yoga. Now from verse 24 to 26, methods to attain yoga root stage and the success formula of bringing the mind back has been mentioned. And here I would like to quote verse 6.25, which says, Shane shaner uparamaded buddhaya dhriti grihityaya atma samstham mana kritva na kinchid apichintayat, which means gradually and step by step. One should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. I would also like to quote verse number 6.26 here, which is the success formula in yoga and bringing the mind back, which says, Yato yato nishchalati manas chanchalam asthiram tatastato niyam yated atmani eva vasham nayet, which means from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. This is the reason why this chapter is known as the discipline of meditation. And the final stage of meditation for a person is entering the stage of samadhi or trance. Now from verses 27 to 30, the platforms of Brahmbhuta or the realized Atma and Brahm Samsara, which means realizing Paramatma, has been mentioned, and also about seeing Krishna everywhere in everyone has been mentioned. From verses 31 to 32, actions of a perfect yogi has been explained. Coming to verses 33 to 36, necessity of controlling the mind has been explained, in which in verse 33 and 34, Arjun's concern is that Ashtang Yoga is impractical due to fickle mind. We all know that we have a very flickering mind which is working all the time with thoughts coming all the time. So Arjun's concern is the same here, in which he is saying that in this age Ashtang Yoga is impractical due to fickle mind. And in verse number 35, Lord Krishna gives the solution that you should control the mind by practice and by detachment, which means by constant practice and diligent practice, and by practicing detachment, a person can bring the mind under control and the mind can become one's best friend. Krishna's conclusion in verse 36 is that mind control is must for yoga, which means to link oneself with the Supreme. Like I stated earlier, mind control is a obligation and mandatory. From verses 37 to 35, the destination of an unsuccessful yogi has been explained, and in verse 37 to 39, Arjun is inquiring about the fate of a fallen yogi. Now, there are people who start the journey on the Ashtanga Yoga or on the path of spirituality, and for whatever purpose they are left behind in spirituality or the Ashtanga Yoga, Arjun wants to know here about what is the fate of such people. In verses 40 to 45, Lord Krishna's reply comes where he says that for a yogi there is no misfortune even in failure. Fate of fallen yogi after short and long practice, he resumes yoga and attains perfection, which implies that once a yogi falls from his state of meditation or Ashtanga yoga or his spirituality, he resumes yoga and attains perfection thereafter. Here I would like to quote verse number 6.41 from Bhagavad Gita, which says, Prapya punya kritam lokan ustitva shashvatahi samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga bhrasto bhijayate, which means the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Now, in verses 46 and 47, which are the concluding verses of chapter number 6, Lord Krishna has stated that Bhakti Yogi is the topmost yogi. So, a person who is involved in the practice of Bhakti Yoga is the topmost yogi in the eyes of Lord Krishna. In verse number 46, Lord Krishna states, a yogi is greater than a tapasvi, jnani and karmi. And in 47, Lord Krishna states that Bhakti Yogi who serves Krishna is the best of all yogis. Therefore, we must try to control our mind by the practice of meditation, and the guidelines for meditation is generally laid down either by the spiritual master, or it has also been mentioned in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that mind control can help us in controlling our mind to an extent where we are at peace and not much agitation takes place in the mind, no matter what happens around us. This is all for this chapter now. I hope you like the audio, and I hope you all the best in transforming yourself into a better self-realized person. Thank you so much.